Well, hello everyone. Sorry the new cam went out, so I'm having to record this on the older, jankier cam. Hopefully it'll keep going through this. But the new one had to be sent back for warranty work, so I wanted to do this. This is such a good point. I love this point. I love that people are making it. And here it is, the FTC Chair, Andrew Ferguson. All of this stuff we've been talking about with the anti-AI cases, there is a really perfect economic term to describe what they're doing. It's called rent seeking. Rent seeking has nothing to do with like your landlord taking rent from you. Rent in an economics context means something completely different. I'm just going to read this real quick from Investopedia. Rent seeking refers to the pursuit of wealth without contributing to society's overall productivity or well-being. Now, what does that mean? Who decides whether something contributes to society's overall productivity or well-being? Well, in capitalism, it's just you and me, and everyone else who interacts with each other. Because if we have a product or service to sell, we offer that at a price, and then people can either buy or not buy on that price, or maybe we could haggle down to a lower price. So if I'm a carpenter and I make a chair, and you say, hey, that's a nice chair, I'll give you $50 for it. And I say, okay, and we make the exchange. I give you the chair, you give me the $50. What does that mean? That means that I valued the $50 more than I valued the chair and all the time and effort I put into making it. And you valued the chair more than you valued the $50 and all the other things you can do with that $50. We both got something that we felt was of greater value than what we gave up. And that is how you increase wealth in the economy. That is how you increase productivity and well-being. We are both better off for having made the exchange. Rent seeking is when you try to cheat and you use either direct government action or manipulate public policy or something like that to give yourself an advantage in the market or to get subsidized or to force people to buy your product or whatever. And rent seeking can disrupt market efficiency, creating disadvantages for consumers and new companies. Rent seeking relies heavily on legislation and government funding distributions that may perpetuate economic imbalance. So it's all about government. Whenever the government says, oh, we need money for the farmers, that's because the farmers are doing rent seeking. If they weren't, they just sell you their products. Well, basically, if you think about it, IP in all its forms is just one enormous bit of rent seeking. Because if you don't have IP, you have to be like Beethoven, who never had any sort of copyright protection for any of the music he composed. So, what did he do? He just kept cranking it out. And since people really liked Beethoven's stuff, then he could make lots of money doing that. But it's really gotten to an extreme, as we've talked about with these anti-AI cases, because even though what the models are doing are absolutely transformative, they're kind of the big thing right now, and they're making lots of money, and there's lots of investment money going into it. The big content cartels want their piece of the pie. Make no mistake, that's what this is all about. And that's what Ferguson said here. He was speaking at a conference called Antitrust in Action, Enforcement Policies and the Path Forward. It's kind of ironic, though, whenever they take an antitrust action against someone, it's because basically they've done rent seeking and they've gotten the government to pass laws in their favor. Okay, well, why don't we just undo those laws? So Ferguson said, large content companies' attempts to claim a slice of the pie whenever other firms train large language models, or LLMs, on their data feels like rent seeking. And he mostly seems to be talking about the licensing agreements they want to be able to have with the big companies, that every time they train on their works, they get money. Which, as Judge Alsop said, even if such a market existed, it's not one they are entitled to exploit. And so one of the questions that the FTC has been confronting is if a consumer would consider it material that their data were used for training on an LLM and the terms didn't express it. Ferguson said this is both an antitrust and a consumer protection issue. And I'm pretty sympathetic to the small content creator types who really depend on clicks and payments through the firewall in order to get their ideas out there. Look, that was one of my concerns about these people being denied access to market, and was one of the reasons that I launched the ad boycott case to make sure those markets worked well. But a lot of this work seems to be done by gargantuan content companies that are trying to make sure that if someone trains on their data, they get a second cut of that. And it just feels awful rent-seeking to me. Yeah, because we've shown you this time and time and time again. I've covered it. They come in like, oh, we're the little guy. We're here. We're just some authors. We're just some people. We're just for the little guy. We're the little artists. Who's really behind them? The Authors Guild, the RIAA, Disney. They're the ones who are going to be raking in all these license fees, and the actual artists and authors and everyone else, they're lucky if they see a pittance from it. That's how it always works. It just doesn't seem terribly different to me reading gargantuan newspapers' content and then going and telling your friends about it. Doesn't seem terribly different to me than training on that data and then telling the user about what it said. It seems like we're seeing this rent-seeking process where the world's largest content companies are just adamant that we should not have this AI progress without us acting sort of like a poll through which people have to pass. Most people would probably agree that if an LLM was asked to reproduce an article word for word, that is a problem for the FTC to deal with. And that's something they've desperately been trying to show. Oh, look at that. It reproduced these outputs verbatim. And why the discovery on that is so crucial, because if they come up with 100 examples and it turns out they got it by running a script 20 million times and they just cherry pick the right results, then that's a big problem. And it's exactly why the decisions about the discovery in the cases in the SDNY are so problematic, because they're not letting OpenAI get that information. But that is not what I've been pitched on this issue. They're definitely concerned about that, but the main is no training without paying, because necessarily our content is going to inform things that the LLM says, and it just feels awfully like rent-seeking to me. Me too, Ferguson. And that's what it really is. They're just scrambling to get their cut of the pie. And if you're an anti-AI person out there who's passing along their propaganda points, guess what? You're not standing up for the little guy. You're not standing up against the big, mean AIs that are producing slop and taking all these jobs away from artists and everyone else. No. You're supporting the big content cartels who want to rake in even more profit that they do not deserve and never have. Thank you so very much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And of course, donate.pagosity.tv keeps me doing this. Through broken cameras and janky setups, hopefully this was working. There's a lag on my screen, but I think I can sync that back up in post. See, it's that kind of work I put in, and you helping can help make it all worthwhile. Because I don't do any rent seeking. I'm not going around trying to grab money I don't deserve. If you think it's worth money, then go to donate.pagosity.tv and give what you can with one-time donations or regular support with Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord. Thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, stay strong and be free.